Thank you for joining today's webinar on behalf of Israel Investment Advisors. I'd like to welcome you to our topic today, the strength of Israel's capital markets regulatory system. We will be discussing Israel's regulatory system with Israel's regulators. I will introduce them in just 1 minute. But before we get there, let me just briefly introduce myself and our firm, Israel Investment Advisors, for those of you who are joining us for the first time. My name is Brian Friedman. I'm the President and Chief Investment Officer here at Israel Investment Advisors. We were established in 2010, and IIA, Israel Investment Advisors, is the general partner of the Israel Investment Fund LP. We are an actively managed Israeli stock portfolio focused on long-term growth. We invest in profitable companies with strong balance sheets and reasonable valuations. We like to say that we are focused on Israel as a scale-up nation, not just the startup nation. And we also provide ongoing research, consulting, and advisory into the Israeli economy and investment landscape, primarily for philanthropic endowments. Once again, my name is Brian Friedman, and I'd like to introduce you to our speakers today. The primary speaker, Charlotte Naor, joined the Israel Securities Authority 5 years ago. She holds a master's degree in management and a postgraduate degree in purchasing and supply management, both from the Sorbonne in Paris. She later earned her law degree from Reichman University in Israel. For the past 3 years, Charlotte has been part of the International and Market Development Department at the Israel Securities Authority, where she currently serves as the head of international development. Joining her is Ophir Ayal. He joined the Israel Securities Authority, by the way, the equivalent of the American SEC. He joined in 2010 and currently serves as the director of the International Affairs and Markets Development Department. In this role, he leads the ISA's global activity, working with peer regulators, international organizations, and leading global market participants. From 2017 to 2019, Mr. Ayal also served as a senior advisor to the last 2 chairs of the ISA. Prior to that, he was the head of the ISA's private enforcement unit. That's where the cops sit. Before joining the ISA, Ophir worked as an associate and partner at some of Israel's leading law firms, representing top business players in complex commercial litigation. Ophir Ayal holds a law degree from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and an LLM with honors from the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. Welcome, Charlotte. Welcome, Ophir. Take it away.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, just... Okay, so is it okay? You hear me and you see the presentation? Okay, great. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Charlotte, and as Brian said, I work at the International Affairs and Market Development Department at the ISA, so the Israeli Securities Authority, and I'm there responsible for international investments. So over the next hour, I'll give you a general overview of the Israeli's public capital market, the opportunities it offers to global investors, and the role of the ISA in it. So Israel is known for its innovation, a strong economy, and ability to navigate complex challenges. And that's something that we've all seen in action, actually in the recent year. So let's dive in, and I hope you will enjoy. So first, let me give you a bit background of the Israel's financial regulatory framework. So in Israel, we have three main financial regulators. We have the ISA, so the Israel Securities Authority, that regulates the public capital market. It includes publicly traded companies, mutual funds, and investment advisors. We have also the BOI, it's the Bank of Israel, and it's in charge of supervising banks and monetary policy in Israel. And we have also the Capital Market Authority that regulates institutional investors, such as pension funds and insurance companies. So just you to have a deeper look of what we do exactly at the ISA. So as I said, the ISA is the main regulator in Israel for public for the public market. And we oversee around 630 publicly traded companies on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, the TASE. And also we oversee mutual funds. By the way, in Israel, we have around 3,000 mutual funds. We oversee underwriters, the stock exchange itself, trading platforms, and lately also payment companies. Now, if you compare the ISA to other regulatory bodies like the SEC in the US or the FCA in the UK, you won't find there a market development department in the regulator itself. Actually, it's not common. But in Israel, because the country places a strong focus on developing its financial public market, this development was created. So our mission is not only to develop the market locally, but also to engage with market participants worldwide and to align Israel with global regulatory standards. So we really work, to make the market as attractive as possible for global players. So despite our main mission, at the ISA, that is to protect investors, it's like the big mission and the big goal of all the securities authority in the world. In Israel, we also aim to make Israel's capital market more appealing to global investors by, keeping it like competitive, more liquid, and also, of course, a great place to invest. So now let's take a closer look at the Israeli economy. So few basic, the Israeli shekel. The Israeli shekel is one of the strongest currencies in the world and has returned, by the way, to its pre-October 7th value. So for international investors, the shekel can be an opportunity to hedge against volatility and to diversify their portfolio. Israel is also recognized as a developed market in major global indices like MSCI. So, it places Israel in the same category as economies like US, UK, or Germany. Israel is also a full member of OECD, which includes leading economies worldwide. And we are also a member of the FATF, that is the international organization that sets global standards for combating money laundering. Now, let me give you a few numbers of the Israeli economy. Well, as of 2024, Israel's economy continues to show solid numbers, as you can see, despite the war and despite, the interest rates that are growing. So Israel's population is around 10 million, with a GDP per capita of about $50,000. The short-term growth has slowed, but the expectations are for a strong rebound. The government debt is at 69% of GDP, which is relatively stable and in line with other developed countries. The unemployment rate is 2.5%. And regarding the inflation, well, the inflation rate in January was 3.8%. But the expectation for the end of 2025 is about 2.6%, and what brings closer to the Bank of Israel target and keeps the prices stable. Well, as we all know, Israel is known, as a startup nation, and also now we are talking about the scale-up nation. And we all know that Israel is a global hub for tech and innovation. So let's take a look at some key numbers of the Israeli tech ecosystem. So there are over 7,000 active tech companies across different sectors. Nearly 200 Israeli tech companies are traded on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. We have about 80 Israeli tech companies that are traded on NASDAQ, and more than 300 research and development centers of major global corporations that operate in Israel. Now, in this slide, you can see some of the Israeli unicorn companies, and I'm sure that you'll recognize a few of them. And what's interesting actually is that many people don't even realize that companies like, eToro, Wiz, Wise, or House are actually Israeli. So these unicorns that you see on that slide are the one in the pipeline for the future IPOs. They are the next generation of publicly traded companies. And actually, every time we show this slide, we have to update it. Because, these companies are constantly growing and evolving, and some of them go public, some of them go to exit, and others merge with big players. So that's a great example of how fast-moving and dynamic the Israel market is. Now, let's take a closer look at the Israel's capital market. Well, I will give you a quick overview of the Israel's capital market in numbers. And honestly, they are pretty impressive for a country of this size. So between 2020 and 2024, there were around 140 IPOs, which shows a strong market expansion. But if we look at the real IPO boom, actually it happened in 2021, when almost 100 companies went public. And it was a record-breaking year for Israel. After that, the number of IPOs slowed down a bit, but not just in Israel. We saw that same trend across major global stock exchanges. And for many reasons, actually, it was because of the high interest rates, the inflation, wars, Ukraine, Russia, the war here. So all of this impacted IPO activity worldwide. But if we look at 2025, I can tell you that at the ISA, we already know that there are dozens of companies that are planning to go public. So I'm pretty sure that by the end of the year, when we'll talk about this, we'll be talking about some very impressive numbers. And that's about the IPOs. Now, if we look at the corporate bond market, only in 2024, companies raised in Israel $25 billion. And it's very impressive, especially considering that, in 2024, it was a full year of war in Israel. And another interesting number is when you look at institutional investors in Israel, you look that they have about 1 trillion assets under management. And that's because, I don't know if you know, but in Israel has one of the highest savings rates in the world. And one big reason for that is that in Israel, pension savings are mandatory. And that's not the case, in most countries. And because of that, institutional investors like pension funds, for example, manage almost $1 trillion in assets. And that number keeps growing every month. Now, I want to highlight something important. Well, when people think Israel, usually they think startup nation. But actually, also, as Brian said, it's important to say that Israel's capital market is much more diverse than just tech. As you can see, TASE gives a wide range of industries to invest in. It includes banking, infrastructure, real estate, oil and gas, insurance, and more. So yes, Israel is a global tech hub, but it's way more than that. And it's a strong market with many different sectors. Now, if we look at the market cap by sector, we can really see how the capital market has changed in 10 years. Well, 10 years ago, Israel was mainly known for industries like, manufacturers and healthcare. Everyone knows Teva, and it was really dominant in the market. And so back then, healthcare and manufacturing were the biggest parts of Israel's capital market. But when we look at the market today, the market is much more diverse. You can see that in the pie that, finance, real estate, and technology have grown a lot and are now the largest sectors on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. And actually here you can see the rise of tech companies on the exchange. And we see that the share of tech companies in the total market cap has grown from 26 to 31%. And why is it so important, this growth? Because, it means that investors now have direct access, they have direct access to the Israeli tech through the public market. And it's, that it's like a solution rather than going on private equity. And it's not only, actually, it's not only a good news for, it's not only for investors, by the way, because it's also mean that more and more Israeli tech companies see Tel Aviv Stock Exchange as a good place to raise capital. And they choose it over the private market or even the Nasdaq. Now, here, when you look at the Tel Aviv index in 2024, here, actually the 2024 over year, the index from the end of 2023 to the end of 2024, you can see the Tel Aviv 125 index in green. Compared to major global indices like S&P 500, DAX, and Nike, we see how Israel recovered well and even did better than some global market during the 2024. Now, let's talk about foreign investors' participation in TASE. Actually, it's like also something. It's my main occupation. My main job is about that because, as I told you earlier, one of our main goals in the ISA is to attract more and more international investors to Israel. And right now, foreign investors make up about 20% of stock market activity. And it's interesting because, despite the war, this number stayed fairly stable. So actually in 2023, just after October 7th, there was like a wave of foreign investors pulling out of the market. But by early 2024, the trend reversed. Now, we can't say for sure that, the investments coming back are the same one that left, but when we look at the numbers, it's clear that foreign investors still have confidence in the Israeli market. And what is it's quite funny because, on the local investment side, actually after October 7th, we actually saw the opposite trend. Institutional investors viewed the market drop after October 7th as a buying opportunity. And actually, that's one of the key reasons why the TASE remains so resilient and even continue to grow despite the war. Now, let's talk about, two key strengths that define the Israel's capital market. So first, we have the resilience. Actually, it's a word that we use a lot when we talk about Israel. And we have also the consistent growth of the market. So here you can see in this slide that every time that there was a war, or an economic event in Israel, the Tel Aviv 125, that is in blue, drops sharply, okay, but then quickly rebounds and performs even better. So in the long run, the trend keeps going up, and that proves how resilient the market is and how fast it recovers. And what's really interesting is that actually this slide, we used to show this slide, to international investors right after October 7th, because, we wanted to show them the V shape of the index. And also we wanted to send a clear message that don't worry, the market will be okay. It will bounces back, and just like, it always does. And now we are a year later. And when we look at what actually happened in Israel capital market, we see the same V shape, just like in the past. And here is, the graph. And in that graph, you can see the Tel Aviv index, the Tel Aviv 125 index compared to the S&P. So in green, the Tel Aviv 125. And this is, from 1999 to today. And of course, it includes all the war and the economic crisis. And you can see the trend, and it's interesting. Actually, another thing that happened on October 7th was the question of whether TASE will open as usual the next day, on October 8th. And after long discussions, it was decided to keep the market open and to allow trading as usual on October 8th. And it wasn't so obvious, to decide something like that, because, for example, after 9/11, the New York Stock Exchange remained closed for a few trading days and only reopened on September 17th. Now, let's see how the shekel has performed since the start of the war. So at first, there was, a sharp drop, okay, in its value against the dollar and the euro, but it recovered very quickly, and it returned also to the pre-war levels. So this rebound showed that, investors trust in Israel. They trust in Israel's market, and also that the monetary policy was very, very well managed by Bank of Israel. So in the end, the shekel remains a strong and a stable currency. Now, this slide showed corporate bond issuance in Israel from 2023 to 2024, and it's you know that better than me, but it's a great indicator of investor confidence in the market. So in the first half of 2023, so you can see it in blue, bond issuance remained stable, with some ups and downs based on market conditions. Then October 2023, when the war began, the issuance dropped sharply. But by the end of 2023 and early 2024, you can see it in red, we saw that bond issuance back to high levels. And this despite challenges like high interest rates and the war. And this shows, that even in difficult times, companies kept raising capital. Okay, now let's talk about indices in the Israel market. So, the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, so TASE, offers a wide range of indices, and that gives investors exposure to different sectors of the Israeli market. So in the next few slides, we'll go over some of them. Okay, so first, let's have a look at the Tech Elite Index. And that provides, this index provides a great exposure to Israeli tech companies. And in the 5 last years, it has delivered an impressive return. We have also, I wanted to show you also the Tel Aviv Finance Index. that tracks, Israel's financial sector, and it includes banks, insurance, and financial services. Over the past 5 years, this index has returned about 140%. So that showed how strong is Israel in the financial industry. We have also the Tel Aviv Real Estate Index that represents Israel's real estate and construction sector. And just last year, this index has gained around 38%. And also that shows the strong growth in the sector. And also, of course, the Tel Aviv Bank Index that includes the 5 largest banks in Israel. And over the past 5 years, this index has delivered a 113% return. Well, now that's okay. We've covered, the Israeli economy and capital markets, and I want to highlight an important subject. How ISA is doing to develop the market for foreign investors. And one of our big focuses is to improve liquidity on TASE. So one of the key steps that we are taking now at the ISA is that we want to improve sell-side analysis of Israeli company, and of course in English. So we are aware that right now the number of research analysis on Israeli stock is pretty low, and it's complicated for investors to access, the information on the Israeli market, and also if they don't speak Hebrew, it's even more difficult. So at the ISA, we work actively to increase the number of research reports. And we hope that this will improve investor interest and trading volumes. Another important step that we took at the ISA is allowing companies, so public companies, to report in English. So a public company in Israel can now choose to report only in English. And thanks to that, it's easier for foreign investors to follow financial reports. And there is another big change coming. I don't know if you know, or if now you will know. So starting from next January, so January 2026, TASE will shift its trading days to Monday to Friday instead of Sunday to Thursday. So that's a very big change, and it will be better, to align Israel's market with global market, and also it will be easier for international investors to participate. Well, at the ISA, we work to make Israel's capital markets more connected to the world, and also to align Israel with global market standards. So we try constantly to make it easier, for foreign investors and businesses to operate here. So let's talk about the major trends that we did in the last years. So over the past few years, we've seen big developments in the Israeli capital market, and I'll talk about a few of them. So for example, as we talked about it before, public companies now can, report only in English. So this change makes it easier for foreign investors, of course, to access and to understand the market. And not only for foreign investors, of course, it's also for, analysis abroad. Now they can understand more the market. Another example, and we'll talk about it after also, it's the demutualization of the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. So till 2019, TASE was owned by the government, but then it became a public company. Another move is that TASE joined international clearing system like DTCC and Euroclear. So this makes it easier, for Israeli companies to work with international investors. And also, we are aware of the importance of ESG and corporate governance. So now the ISA actively encourage companies to publish reports on corporate responsibility and risk management. Now, At the ISA, we encourage also companies to report in the IXBRL format. Well, it's a global standard and it's used in places like in Europe or in US. So we are aware that it makes financial data easier to analyze. It's fast, it's automated, and it helps international investors and analysts to have access to reports from Israeli public companies more easily. Another step that we took is that we took it to have a better transparency and accessibility. It's the introduction of the electronic voting system for shareholders meetings. Now investors can be active and take a part in general meetings online without needing to be there in person. So the system is secure, it's easy to use, and actually we had a great feedback on it. And of course, it makes it easier, for shareholders to participate actively. And at the end, it helps to improve market accessibility and corporate governance. Now, another unique feature of the Israeli capital market is the ability to conduct global offerings on TASE. So it means, what is a global offering? It means that when an Israeli company wants to raise capital, whether through equity or bonds, it doesn't have to choose between local and international investors. And the company can access both markets in the same time and maximize the fundraising. So the global IPO is led by a global investment bank under the book building method. And this kind of offering aims to attract foreign investors while the company's share remains traded on TASE. So let me give you an example. The first example is the first global IPO that we had on TASE. It was the IPO of the stock exchange itself. So a few years ago, as I told you earlier, TASE was owned by the government, but in 2019, it became a public company. And it was actually the first global IPO in Israel. This IPO was led by Jefferies, which helped to attract international investors. And actually, it was a big success because 90% of the investors in this IPO were global investors. And in fact, in the past years, we've seen more and more global investors participating in Israeli public offerings. So, for example, lately we had the IPO of Nayax. Also, it was a global IPO of Max Stock, etc. Another unique feature in our capital market that we set up is to attract companies and to encourage them to list their shares on TASE is the dual listing arrangement. So I think it's a great example, by the way, to show how the ISA actively works to make the market as global as possible. Well, dual listing allows companies that are already traded on certain markets to list their shares on TASE, and that without additional regulatory requirements. So let me give you an example. If, like a company listed on the New York Stock Exchange, this company can also be traded on TASE without needing to comply with the Israeli regulation. And we call it 2 markets for the price of 1. And right now we have about 50 companies that are dual listed on TASE, and they are responsible of 1/3 of TASE value and trading volume. For example, I'm sure that you know those companies we have. For Teva is dual listed, Elbit, Nice, ICL, etc. And here you can see on the map, the stock exchanges in the world that are included in the dual listing arrangement. And of course, we have NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. And just like for companies, we have the exactly same concept applies to ETFs. This is also an example of how the ISA is working, to bring more global players on the ground. ETFs are traded on big exchanges like Euronext, New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, etc., can be listed on TASE in a very simple way. Well, the ETF remains under the regulation of its home country, so exactly the same principle like for the companies, and it means that there is no extra reporting or compliance obligation in Israel. And right now on TASE, we have about 40 ETFs that are already traded, and they were issued by BlackRock and Invesco. And here is, the map of all the stock exchanges that are included in the ETF dual listing arrangement. Excuse me. Okay. Now, as I've said, one of our main goals at the ISA is to make Israel a major player in global finance. And to make that happen, we work constantly to bring more global financial player into the market. And we try also, and we make it more liquid, more attractive and accessible for international investors. So if in the past, you global investors and market participants watch Israel from a distance, today we see more and more of them actively involved on the ground. So here you can see just few examples of investment manager and banks that are actually on the ground in Israel, and it's just a few of them. Well, another key factor that is important, I think, for international investors is how efficient and how strong our corporate governance and enforcement is. So now let's talk about the ISA, how the ISA ensure that the Israeli market is fair enough, well regulated and aligned with international standards. Well, it's important to understand that our enforcement powers at the ISA are very different from what you'll find in other countries. And this is also the reason why Israel's capital market is considered safe and well regulated. So in Israel, the ISA had 3 types of enforcement powers: criminal, administrative, and private enforcement. First, criminal enforcement actually is a big deal because it's not common. For example, the US SEC doesn't have this authority. So at the ISA, we actually investigate serious financial crimes like fraud and insider trading, etc. And this means also, real consequences, including fines and even jail time. There is also a more common enforcement for regulator, the administrative enforcement, and it allows the ISA to fine directly companies. It's a quick procedure, and it's totally conducted by the ISA. And the last one is the private enforcement, and it means that if a company acts unfairly, well, investors have the right to take legal action to protect themselves. And why is it so unique? Because in Israel, the ISA can even help to fund the derivative suits. Actually, we have also, as usual, in well-developed capital markets, we have in Israel specialized courts for financial cases, like the economic courts. And the court is specialized in corporate and financial disputes and applies international standards in corporate law. And all of this, to ensure fair and also predictable rulings. Okay, so first, I want to thank you for listening to this presentation, and we truly appreciate your time and your interest. Also, we'd be happy to explore any topics that could interest you. If you have any question, please feel free, and feel free also to reach out if you'd like more info about the Israeli public capital markets. So I put also our mails, and please, Amy.
I'll continue from here, but
yeah,
from Charlotte, this was very useful, very interesting, and I learned a ton.
Ah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open the floor for anybody that has a comment or a question, including Brian and Ophir. So let me know if you have any questions.
And for anybody that wants to write a question, please put it in the chat or the Q&A function that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. While we're waiting for questions, maybe if you don't mind, I think one of the things that's been interesting over the last number of years in Israel, and you touched on it at the end, Charlotte, is the ISA's willingness to aggressively enforce the securities laws, particularly those that protect minority shareholders. I don't know if you'd want to address, or maybe Ophir, some of the actions in the past that might give foreign investors like us a fairly high degree of confidence in how the ISA works and enforces the laws.
Yeah, sure. I think it was a presentation about the market and about the development and the strength and everything, but we add this section about the enforcement and about corporate governance. It was intentionally done because we also acknowledge the importance of these factors when we speak with global investors. Some of them doesn't know the Israeli markets, don't know the ecosystem, they don't know the regulator, they don't know anything. And I think they should know that the system is strong, that the ISA has proper powers to enforce the law. And as Charlotte presented, it's very unusual that the securities regulator have actually all three paths of enforcement: the criminal path, also the administrative, and also to be involved in private enforcement, which is unheard of. Like that, it's not only that in Israel private investors can file class actions or derivative actions. It's also that the ISA in proper cases can fund the plaintiffs and can be involved in the case. Also, the corporate governance in Israel is in a very high level. We were ranked, like, I don't remember, with 15 or 18 in the doing business ranking a couple of years ago. We also very, very active in the OECD Corporate Governance Committee. We are part of the leadership there. So it's very important to us to emphasize this, because I think it gives like comfort for investors, for global investors. And we also, it's not only on the paper. We use these powers. There are some very high profile cases that we use these powers, and I think that this is the reason why our market is pretty much clean. Of course, there is no 100% success, but I think that our market is pretty much clean. We also have lots of technology that we incorporated within our investigation department in order to watch the market, in order to investigate with technology ways. I think in that respect, the global investors can feel comfortable with being in our market.
Terrific. And both of you, Charlotte, you had mentioned in your presentation about, first of all, I was pleased to hear about the pipeline of IPOs. That's news. You guys get the early indications of that kind of activity. And so it's nice to hear that IPOs are probably going to pick up. And you mentioned Israel's resilience and the rebound in its capital markets. Maybe if you don't mind, can you talk a little bit about sort of the total amount of that's been going on by the government. And I saw that a great deal of that was traded on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. And it's a little bit of a different type of way of trading government debt. Can you maybe just dive into that a little bit?
Can you repeat, Brian? I'm not sure I got you correctly. Sorry, I want to be precise.
That there's there was an expansion in government debt to fund the war, but a lot of that debt is traded.
You're right. You're right.
On
Yeah,
the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange.
Yeah, that's right. Part of the expenses for the war were raised by the local, actually not only the local stock exchange, because the government also issued bonds outside Israel, but part of it was is within the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. The institutional investor, the Israeli institutional investor, as Charlotte said, they are very strong. They are very active. The mandatory saving helped them to be like that, and they invested in the governmental bonds. They did it actually from economic reasons. Yeah, they didn't do favor for the government or something. They thought it's like also an opportunity. That was the reason, and they did it. Actually, also maybe it's worth mentioning, and Charlotte said it, that the bond market in Israel, the traded bonds are very exceptional. It's very special in a way that in Israel equities and bonds are traded the same way, same regulatory regime. It's not so common that retail investor can buy directly bonds in the stock exchange, but in Israel it's very common. And it's very popular, and we have, I think, I don't remember the number, but maybe something like 800 series of bond issued in Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, and also a couple of dozens of companies, of global companies that arrived to Tel Aviv Stock Exchange especially in order to issue bonds that they are not Israeli companies at all, but they acknowledge that the Israeli Stock Exchange is a proper trading platform for them to raise debt, and they arrived here, which I think it's like a recognition for the strength of the market, of the bonds market.
We received a question in your presentation, Charlotte. You mentioned that 300 international technology companies have R&D centers in Israel. They had seen numbers that were higher than that, maybe even higher than 400. Can you give a sense of, namely, what those R&D centers are and what they do, and the scope and size of their activity?
The updating number that I have is 300, but if I made a mistake, I will check that. But those are our actual numbers. 300 R&D actually.
Okay.
They did all kind of. I mean, you know, as Charlotte said, like Israel is famous for its R&D quality and number of engineers. Investment in startups per capita, I think, is the highest in the world, and like also the world leaders, the tech world leaders, they acknowledge it, and they arrived in Israel to have all kind of R&D centers in many aspects. Whereas I think it's harder to say specifically which R&D center does what. But it's because of the quality of the tech people here.
And also, you know, it depends also how you categorize tech. There are a few categorization of technology. So sometimes, you know, you include some companies that are included in many countries. In Israel, no. So that's why maybe there is a difference also in the numbers.
A lot of people on this call may not realize, you know, for example, the largest stock by market value in the world today is NVIDIA, that's making the artificial intelligence chips. NVIDIA has done several acquisitions in Israel, and not just for R&D, but they, over the years, have seen their total employee base grow from close to zero. And through these acquisitions and hiring, I think they're up to about 4,000 employees in Israel, most of which are doing various aspects of product development at the core of artificial intelligence. And Jensen Huang has been to Israel. In fact, unfortunately, one of the biggest acquisitions they made, Mellanox, Eyal Waldman, who became one of the chairman or vice chairman of NVIDIA itself, his daughter was murdered in the Nova Festival, and Jensen and NVIDIA has done a tremendous amount in Israel since then. But anyway, they continue to grow and they continue to make acquisitions. So what happens is it's not so much the number of these centers, but some of these centers start out with 10 or 20 or 30 and they grow to thousands, like Microsoft, Cisco, NVIDIA.
Yeah.
What
Yeah, I
happens?
think actually you are totally right, Brian. I think, if I'm not mistaken, like Intel is the largest employer in Israel. I think I heard it somewhere. It's tens of thousands of employees in Israel, in couple of R&D centers. So it's totally true.
All right, we've received a couple of questions. Hi, Ophir. Hi, Charlotte. Are there any new initiatives to encourage Israeli institutions to more fully gain exposure to large Israeli companies that are not listed on the TASE? For example, CyberArk, Monday, etc.
It's a great question. It's a great question. We know that there are many Israeli companies that at the very successful ones that at the moment are not traded on TASE, and do traded on other stock exchanges. Most of them, the biggest one, are traded in the US, New York Stock Exchange, or Nasdaq. And we are and first of all, the Israeli institutional investors invested in those companies as well. But we think it's better for them also to be traded on Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, that it will be easier for retail investors to buy their shares in the local platform, that it will be good for the Israeli economy and the Israeli capital market. And we do approach them constantly, and we try to explain them the advantages of the dual listing arrangement. It's a process. We are working on it all the time. It's not so easy sometimes to convince like company like Wix or like CyberArk, which are already market leaders in the US, also to arrive to Israel. But there are some other companies that it's more relevant and it's more attractive for them. But we are working on it, and it's a big target of us, and it's our mission to do it, because it's very important, I think, to connect Israeli companies to the Israeli economy and to the Israeli trading platform, which is TASE.
One last question. So what do you think as you look into the future? And you made an excellent case for the resilience and the rebound. And like you said, Charlotte, we've already seen the rebound in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange to a great extent, just as we've seen in prior conflicts. I was also pleased to see the growth in liquidity. What are the drivers of future liquidity? What should we be looking for to see where higher trading volumes and greater ability to buy and sell are going to come from, in your opinions?
I think Charlotte mentioned it. It's the shifting of the trading days. We believe it will be a game changer. It's not like we didn't invent it in our meeting rooms within the ISA. It's after we talked with many market participants, with many international or global brokers, global investors, and they told us that it's a real barrier for them for entering the Israeli capital markets. So we believe that after we will do this alignment, we will have more global investors within our market. We believe and hope that after that we may also be included in the MSCI Europe, because you remember that we tried to do it and we were not so successful. And the main reason why we didn't succeed is the trading day. So we believe this will be one driver. And another one, and Charlotte mentioned it as well, is like a reform regarding the ability to have sell-side research. In Israel, the research, it's not like the research quality, but the research existence actually, there are some regulatory barriers, and the research market doesn't look like the US market. For example, underwriters are not allowed to do research, and now we are going to fix it. And we hope that there will be more like sell-side research that will make the market more liquid and more vibrant, and we hope we will succeed to do it as well.
And if I can add also, we have, the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange also, work to ensure more liquidity, and they appointed now market makers also to improve the trading volume. So it's also something that is going to improve liquidity. And also there is now the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange launched futures contracts, on 3 leading index like Tel Aviv 35, Tel Aviv 90, and Tel Aviv Banks 5. So I think that those are, many things that we are doing, and also the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange to improve liquidity.
Well, I want you to know I've had a lot of fun improving my Hebrew reading ability, reading reports of Israeli companies over the last 15 years, but I certainly welcome the change towards English reporting, and I have a feeling many of those much larger firms than us won't devote the time and energy that I have. So I think that's a game changer as well. So thank you. I look forward to that.
And with that, I want to thank Charlotte, Ophir, and Shoval for being here with us today. This was a very important topic. I want to thank everyone that joined us, and we're looking forward to our next one. We'll be announcing it soon.